Hello, students. This week we're going to talk about yet another aspect of personal assessment, and this week we're going to look at something called personality. So as a recap, so far we've looked at learning styles, of course, how you learn, how you process information. We've looked at study environments, which are the locations where you learn, where you process information. We've also looked at two types of intelligence, multiple intelligence, how you solve problems and create ideas and products of value using 8 different skill sets. And we also looked at emotional intelligence, which is how you solve problems using your emotions. So today we're going to look at the last piece of the puzzle and we're going to focus on personality. So to start with, let's have a little bit of an icebreaker and do some digging into your personality. And then we're going to do that by taking a quick inventory. So if you would, go ahead and get out a sheet of paper and answer the following 3 questions for me. No, this is not for a grade, but yes, I would like you to do it. So here is the scenario. You have passed away, I'm sorry, but at this moment you get up to heaven, of course, and they tell you heaven is too full, and as such you are asked to return to earth, and you can return to earth as any animal you choose, but it needs to be one that represents your personality. So the question is, choose one animal you should return to earth as and why, have a reason why, and make sure that you pick an animal that is a description of who you are, that it meets the qualities and characteristics of you as an individual. Okay, whatever animal you just wrote down, I am so sorry. Unfortunately, this animal cannot be used. So question number 2, we need you to choose a different animal to return to earth as and why. Make sure you tell why. And also please be sure to pick a totally different animal species. So for example, if you said panther for the first answer, please don't put lion or tiger for the second one. And again, please make sure that you pick an animal that is a description of who you are, that shares qualities and traits with you. Well, oh my goodness, we are so sorry, but you can't choose that second animal either. But I promise, whatever you pick this third time will work. So question number 3, we need you to choose another different animal to return to earth and why, and make sure again that you pick a different animal species than you did for the first 2. And again, make sure you pick an animal that is a representation of who you are. Okay, so let's take a look at your responses and also mine. So the first animal that you wrote down, what is it that you put on your list? That animal that you selected represents how you want other people to see you. So what I wrote down was a big cat, which would be, a lion or a tiger. And the reason I wrote the big cat is because they're strong, they're intelligent, they're independent. But they also have this interesting dichotomy where they can be assertive and aggressive when they need to be, but ultimately they're just like little kittens and they're very playful when they want to be as well. So the second animal that you wrote down represents how you see yourself. So this is interesting. For the second one, I put a ram or a bighorn sheep. I always, as a kid, wanted to be a sheep herder. And why? They are strong, again, intelligent, again, but this time they're a little bit more team-oriented. They work well on a team. They're very determined. They're steady and sure-footed. You can count on them. And they also know how to get to the top of a mountain, right? They know how to reach that goal. The third animal that you wrote down theoretically represents who you really are. So what did I write for this? I put some version of, a butterfly, a ladybug, a hummingbird. And when we focus on, for example, the hummingbird, it is such a small but very powerful creature. It pollinates, it spreads goodness, from one plant to another. It's a nourisher, it's a generator. It's colorful, it's pretty, it's happy, it's energetic, it's sensitive, and that represents who I am. All right, so why did we do this, guys? And the answer is, of course, it relates to personality. Is it 100% scientifically valid? No. But I did want to get you guys starting to think about our unique qualities and our characteristics. So all of the animals that you listed in some way are representative of you, right? And maybe as we peel back the layers, we're getting a little more to the core essence of your traits, once we strip away a little bit of that ego on those first answers. But all of them are essentially versions of our spirit animal, right? Each represents some aspect of who we are, or what we're about, our qualities, our characteristics. And more than anything else, I want you to think about the qualities that you listed about yourself. Not even so much the animal, but more the qualities. And for me, I notice several things keep coming out. Intelligent, independent. I prefer working alone, but if I have to, I'm a great team worker. I'm goal-oriented. I'm happy. I'm energetic. I'm passionate. I'm sensitive. Those are all characteristics and qualities of me. So here we are, talking about spirit animals, and you might wonder, well, why do colleges and universities have an animal or a mascot? And it comes back to everything that we're talking about, right? It reflects the same idea of personality. What animal reflects the traits and the characteristics of the college, the university, the team. And as we look at this, diagram here on the right, we think about STC, of course, our school. And STC's spirit animal is the jaguar. And I always thought this was a really interesting pick because, why did STC select it? Well, first of all, the jaguar is the largest and the most powerful of the big cats in the Americas. So that's pretty powerful right there. Only the African lion and the Asian tiger are larger and stronger predators. So you can see it really as the king of the jungle in the Americas. And another reason is a cultural reason. You think about where we live and the significance of where we live. And to ancestors of the Americas, right, the Mayans, the Aztecs, the jaguar was actually seen as a god, and it was a living spirit of the warrior, right? So in a sense, our students, our faculty, our staff, our college embodies the traits of the jaguar. So it is important to reflect on what our spirit animals are. There are a lot of different websites out there that can help you, right, tailor your personality traits to an animal. But what I'd really like you to start doing more and more is start identifying some of those core traits, some of those key traits that make you who you are. And then later you can go find the animal that matches it. And for me, I really do believe that the hummingbird is one of my spirit animals. So a few years ago, I did have this artist from Oregon make these watercolors for me, right? And these paintings actually hang in my house, and every day they remind me of me. So sometimes, you're kind of tiny, but the power that you have over shaping and influencing things, kind of the legacy that you leave. And I think a lot about the influence that I've had on others, including my amazing, wonderful students, and the idea of being a nourisher and a generator and a pollinator. And also that it's really important to be passionate and energetic and sensitive about the things that we do in our life. So this hummingbird really speaks to me. I hope that you find your spirit animal as well. All right, so I've sort of teased the topic of personality, right, with our little spirit animal game. But for real, let's talk about personality. Let's start with a definition. What is it? And of course, it's not one thing. It's a complex of all of these attributes, right? All of these traits, these characteristics, these qualities that characterize a unique individual. So it's each of the characteristics together that make us unique, as unique as a snowflake, right? And so it's made up of our characteristic patterns of our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors that, again, make us unique. And I want you to keep in mind, too, that that personality does come from within us, and it remains fairly consistent throughout life. It's really shaped, we're going to talk about in a minute, by what comes from within us, but also especially experiences, but especially those early experiences. So yes, where does personality originate? And of course, it's a combination of what I was saying in the last slide of nature and nurture. So nature is inborn genetics in the DNA, and nurture is experience. So let's start with nature. So personality involves not only these, inborn traits, these genes, the DNA, but it's also the development of cognitive and behavioral patterns that influence how we think, how we feel, and how we act. So you see a word there on the screen next to nature, temperament. Temperament is a key part of personality, and this is determined by inherited traits. Now, Character, which you see by the word nurture, that's an aspect of personality that's influenced by experience, that continues to grow and change throughout our entire life cycle. So yes, the experiences shape us. Our life experiences, our family life, parenting, our upbringing, our social relationships definitely influence us. So when you take your psychology classes, you're going to talk about probably about twin studies a little bit. And twin studies and other kinds of research related to this show that and there's some debate in the psychological world, right? But that about half of the variation between individuals comes from genetics, from nature, and about half comes from the environment, right? So keep in mind also, personality does evolve over time, and it responds to the influences of experiences. So experience definitely plays a role throughout the lifespan, but much of personality is definitely determined by our nature, right, for the inborn characteristics, and the experiences that are on the early part of our life, our early childhood experiences. Now we're going to look just a little at the history of personality very briefly, okay? So obviously the study of personality has been around for a really, really long time. Essentially, we as humans have been interested in personality that first time an individual or a group of people noticed that, well, some people act alike, right? And other people act differently. And in fact, we can go all the way back to 350 BC when Aristotle and Hippocrates, who were ancient Greek philosophers, actually studied personality, right? And since then, there have been a lot of people in education, a lot of people in psychology. They've also studied personality, and they've all come to some kind of a conclusion, and that is there tends to be these clustering of traits that tend to be associated with a particular personality. Okay, and research is still being done in this area. Okay, so trait theories of personality are the ones that most psychology classes focus on, and they attempt to, pin down exactly how many personality traits exist. And as you're going to learn again in your psychology classes, there is one of the theories has 4,000 different personality traits. Another really popular one has 16 personality traits. There's another one that has a 3-factor theory, right? And there are all these critiques of all these different models. Sometimes they say the models are too complicated, sometimes they're too limited. And as a result of all of this debate and discussion and research, this 5-factor theory emerged to describe the essential traits that really serve as the building block of personality, right? So for our purposes, we're going to focus on something called the Big Five. We want to apply the Big Five theory to you, all with the goal of understanding you better, so then you can make better choices and also just understand yourself in general in life. So obviously in the next few slides, we're going to be talking about the Big Five traits of personality.